Welcome to Excel Magic Trick number 1313. Hey, if you want to download this Excel workbook and follow along, click on the link below the video. Hey, we have a data set here and we need to create a unique list and sort it and put it into a single cell. Now, this formula, or this series of formulas we're going to do are the craziest, most complicated formulas that I've ever done a video on. Now, let's go over to Bill Sizes, because this formula comes from Bill Sizes. And here's the data set, and here's the formula. Oh, my heavens. Yes, that makes all of our heads spin. But if we break it down bit by bit, there's lots of repeat in here, and maybe, just maybe, we can make sense of it. Here's the original question posted below, Excel Magic Trick 1309, and this was the Mr. Excel post that was also made. Now, let's go back over to 1313. Actually, Bill created this formula. There's a bunch of parts that are going to be in this formula that I have written explanations for. Chapters 16, 17, 18, 19 in my book, Control-Shift-Enter, Mastering Excel Array Formulas. We're going to talk our way through here, but sometimes, some of this is going to be so complicated. If you want to read something, you can. Not only that, but one of the coolest parts, the transpose function, that I mentioned in my book. Dominique at the Mr. Excel message board many years ago showed me this formulas. Not only that, but we're going to use this N if one formula construction that we talked about back in Excel Magic Trick 1304, 5, 6, and 11. All right, so here's the data set. To get started, we're first going to try in this cell to create an array of all the relative positions and falses for a unique list. So in essence, I want to somehow, from this list, get the information into the formula about where the unique items are. So many of our formulas come down to the match function, because what does match do? It looks something up and tells you the relative position. Well, in the lookup argument, I'm going to give it all the items, which means this is a function argument array operation. Match is going to spit out a bunch of answers. Notice I already named this, so it'll be a little bit easier to read. Now, the lookup array, I'm going to give it the same exact range of values. Now, the trick here is when we get to match, we definitely want exact match 0, because that means when it encounters a duplicate, it will list the same relative position. So if I hit F9, now we can see we have 1, 2, 3, 3. That means it found Mike in relative position 1, Piotra position 2, 1, 2, 3, position 3. And notice, because we have exact match 0, there's a second 3. Now, since we want to pick out a unique list, I want to get rid of that 3 right there. So watch this. I'm going to ask the question, are any of you equal to? And now I want to create a formula element that will give me the positions 1 to 14. So I say row of that same exact data set. Right now, that would give me 8 all the way to 21. So I subtract row of the very first one. That would give me an array of 0 to 13. So I don't want that, so I add 1 back in. If we look at this little bit, F9, there's 1 to 14. Now, I can say, is 1 equal to 1? True. 2 equal to 2. 3 equal to 3. But now when I get to, from here, 3, are you equal to 4? There will be a false. So I'm going to click and hit F9. There's our series of trues and falses that tips us off to the position of the unique items. Control Z. Now I want to get rid of those not available errors. So I'm going to do an if, and I'm going to get that same data range, and I'm going to ask the question, are you not equal to double quote, double quote? That's a way of finding the empty cells in our particular data set. If that's true, comma, then please give me a second if, and that's also a series of trues and falses. So there's 2 successive ifs. And finally, what do I want? I want the actual relative positions. Then I close parentheses twice. This little bit right here, if I F9, it gives me, in essence, a unique list of the relative positions with falses. Our next step is to count how many numbers there are. Control Z. Now I'm going to copy this. I'm going to enter this with Control-Shift-Enter, so it's an array. We're never going to use it. We're just doing it step by step here. I need to count, so I can simply use count. And inside of count, I can Control V. Count is programmed to ignore those falses. It will only count numbers. Control-Shift-Enter. There's our unique count. Now, the next little bit I'm going to need in my formula is an array of sequential numbers. If there are 9 unique items, I need an array that spans from 1 to 9. So the sequential numbers 1 to 9. Now, I'm going to do the row and then the indirect function. And then inside of indirect, I'm going to say 1 colon, in double quotes, and join it to this 9. Now, let's see what this formula is doing on the inside. It's just F9. Well, it looks like a row reference 1 to 9, but it's text, Control-Z. The indirect function is specifically programmed to take text references and convert them back to references. But watch what happens when I hit F9. That is too big for the cell. Now, here's a great trick Bill Scissors did. Now, in my book, I talk about this as a way to create a variable dynamic array of sequential numbers. And I use the row reference 1 colon. But watch this. Bill Scissors says, hey, if I do A1 colon A inside of text and join it to 9, then this little bit is just A1 to A9. So if I wanted to evaluate it with indirect F9, I can see the content of the cells, cell A1 to A9. Now, I was curious about which one might calculate fastest. And I've never used this construction. So on the timing sheet, I timed both of them, the ones with the A's and the ones without. And there didn't appear to be any difference in terms of calculation speed. Now, if we highlight all the row, we hit F9, and there's our array of sequential numbers 1 to 9. We're going to need that in a few places in our formula. Control-Z. Now, I'm actually going to hit Control-Shift-Enter here just to keep it consistent. Come up to Home, and I'm going to open the clipboard. I'm going to clear this so I can get my array of relative positions with all of the falses, Control-C, and this array of 1 to 9, because I want to take that first array right there and extract just the numbers, get rid of the falses. So I'm going to copy both of those formula elements. And down here, this is an array of all the relative positions, meaning first, second, third, fifth, and so on. So I'm going to use this small function. And in the array, that's that first array there, I'm going to paste that from the clipboard, comma, and then the K, that's this 1 to 9. So what we're doing here is this is a function argument array operation. I'm saying small simultaneously pull out from this array here the first 9 numbers. So when I close parentheses in F9, there it is. These are the relative positions for our unique list. 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 9, and so on. Now Control-Z, copy, and I'm going to enter this with Control-Shift-Enter. Now we want to create the unique list. Remember, there's our array of relative positions. So now I can simply say equals index. And index, I need you to look through this whole list here, comma. And then I need all the row numbers simultaneously. So I can paste this Control-V. Remember, that's got the relative positions. Close parentheses. And if I F9, as we saw back in Excel Magic Trick 13, 04, 5, 6, and 11, there are some functions that cannot deal with simultaneously getting an array of values like this. So we learned back these videos here how to use the N, the if, and the 1. If you look at Bill Scissors' formula, he used the choose function instead of the if. But it's a way of coercing index to see this array. So Control-Z. So N. And then I'm going to say if. And then the logical test, I'm going to say 1, comma. And that value if true is that whole little bit that index was not able to see. But when I come to the end, actually right there for the value if true, close parentheses, and then close on the end, and then close on the row number. Now if I F9, index can see that array of relative positions. There is our unique list sitting in a single cell. Now, the unique list is totally awesome by itself, but now we need to sort it. In essence, we need to get that 1 out first, then the 53, then the 1, 2, 3, then the Alexandria, and so on. Now, I'm going to copy this. This is the formula element that gives us our unique list. I'm going to enter with Control-Shift-Enter. And now we want to go look at how we can use a comparative operator to compare and, in essence, try and sort. And this little bit here I do on my book, and originally I learned this from Dominique at the Excel message board. But when I Control-V, there's the whole array. I'm just going to enter it, Control-Shift-Enter, as an array. And then I want to put it as row headers and column headers. So watch this. I'm going to transpose that array there and enter it as an array, Control-Shift-Enter. Now watch this. We need to somehow rank these alphabetically. So we're going to use a comparative operator. Now that row header, I need to compare Mike to each one of these items here. So I'm going to lock the column reference but not the row reference, hitting the F4 key 3 times there. And then I'm going to say, hey, that text item, Mike, are you greater than or equal to this item here? Now this one I need lock going down but not to the side, so I hit the F4 key twice. And watch this when I enter this. Now, before I enter it, I'm actually going to convert the true and false to a 1 and 0 because we're going to need that later. But now if I copy this down and look to the side, remember this is comparing these two text items. Are you greater than or equal to? Is Mike greater than or equal to? Well, it's equal to. Is Mike, the text item, greater than or equal to that text there? The answer is false. How about this one? Yes, Mike is bigger than it or equal. Bigger, bigger, not bigger. So guess what? Here's the information about the ranking for our alphabet. If you add these numbers up, there are 7 items in the list that are greater than or equal to Mike. If you add them, that number 7 tells you exactly where it should be in the list. If I come down to the number 1, and notice that comparative operator is working on numbers and text, and even, look at that, Bill and Bellin. It knows how to decipher between those. But there it is. If you add this up, there's only one item that's exactly equal to. So that tells us if we add this row, it would give us rank 1 in terms of sorting. Down here you see 1, 2. So that would be the second item. All right, but now how are we going to add all these? Because we need an array that says 7, 8, 3, 1, and so on. We're actually going to have to do matrix algebra. And watch this. We're going to use the mmult function, which does matrix multiplying. If I take an array, and notice this array is 9 rows by 9 columns, and I multiply that by an array of 1s that's exactly 9 rows and 1 column. And we're only allowed to use these sized ranges because rows and columns, the actual columns of the first array has to equal the rows of the second array, and the resultant array will be the number of rows from the first array and the number of columns from the second array. So watch this. This is how a matrix algebra works. 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times 0 is 0. 1 times 1 is 1. So it does this whole row, and then it adds them. And it does it for each row. So if I close parentheses and hit F9, there is our rank. That's the information about sorting. The 4th item should be first in the sorted list. The 7th item should be second. The 3rd item should be third, and so on. Now, Control-Z. We're going to have to not do it like this because we need it all in one cell. Here, I'm going to close the clipboard for a second. And I'm going to come over here because this is, in essence, our unique list. So I'm going to copy it. And watch this. Equals mmult. We need to convert for mmult the trues and falses to 1s and 0s. So I'm going to use double negative. And then I need to simulate. Remember, all of these row headers, are you greater than or equal to the column header? So Control-V. Are any of you greater than or equal to, and then transpose that same unique list. Close parentheses, close parentheses. If I click on this array in F9, I get the same array as down here. Control-Z, comma. And now I would like to highlight this, but remember, I need all of the information to come from that original data set. So I need an array that's going to be 9 1s. Well, I already have, right here, I'm going to cheat. In the k argument here, remember that? That's the little bit that creates the array from 1 to 9. So I'm going to Control C. Now I'm going to come to array 2, Control V. Of course, if I F9, that's not what I want. I need 1s. But any number raised to the 0 is 1. So Control Z. That'll always be the right dimension. And when we caret 0, that, of course, will give us an array of 1s exactly as we need them. And they have to be in rows, which they are. You can see the array syntax. Semicolon means row. Control Z, close parentheses. And then that scary, huge formula element will create F9, the information about sorting. And when I Control Z, realize that all of the information for this formula is coming from that original data set. Now, I'm going to Control C because we're going to paste it up over here. But I'm going to enter for the time being, Control Shift Enter, just to leave a trail there. So this is our ranks, in essence, how many are equal to or above if you have a sorted list. So equal sign, Control V, Control Shift Enter. Now, let's copy this and come down here. We're actually going to have to sort the relative positions. But before we think about what that means, let's evaluate this F9. And notice, yes, we know that the fourth item is the first item that should be in our list. But for our final formula, we're going to need the relative position of the item that should be at the top of the list. And it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So I need an array that goes 4. And then because 2 is in the seventh position, I need an array that says in the second position 7. Then in the third position 3. Well, of course, the match function will work. If I looked up 1 and said, where is 1 in this array? It's in the fourth position. If I said match function, look up 2, it would give me the 7th position. So Control Z. Now I'm going to need the formula element that gives us the numbers 1 to 9. So there it is, Control C. And now I come up and I'm going to use the match function. Now look up value here. Well, wait a second. I'm going to type a comma. And then in the lookup value right there, I'm going to Control V. So right now, match is going to look up 1 to 9 as a function argument array operation and try to find it in that whole array. We are definitely coming to the end because nothing is sorted, and type in a 0 for exact match. That's for the match function. And you're not going to believe this. When I make sure my cursor's at the end and hit F9, there is my sorted list of relative positions. I first need to get the fourth item. I then need to get the 7th item, then the 3rd item. By the way, these relative positions are for the unique list, not actual this list. All right, Control Z, Control C to copy, and then I'm going to Control Shift Enter. We're almost there. Now we have two parts. We have this sorted relative positions of rank, and we have our unique list. I'm going to have to use both of them. Actually, I'll open up the clipboard, clear it because I can't read any of it, and I'm going to copy. This is the unique list, Control C. This will be our sorted relative positions for our ranks, Control C. You are not going to believe this. Equals index. Now, index is going to look up in array the actual unique list, comma. And now row number. If I put this sorted relative positions for our ranks, as we saw in Excel Magic Tricks 1304 and so on, index can't interpret that. So we have to do, once again, our N tab, and then our if tab, and then our 1, comma. So right there, that whole thing is sitting in the if after the number 1. I come to the end very carefully. I'm going to close that off. I can see I'm now sitting in the N. I close that off. Now the index will be able to understand that array of relative positions for our alphabetic sorting. Close parentheses. Now if I F9 to evaluate this, you got to be kidding me. There is a sorted list. Control Z. Now, because our goal was to put it into a single cell, we use the text join function, which is only in Excel 2016. Now here we have to put a delimiter, so I'm going to put in double quotes, comma, space, end double quote, comma, and then ignore empty, comma, because the default is ignore empty, and there it is, that huge thing in text. Close parentheses, Control Shift and Enter, and there it is. There is our sorted unique list in a single cell. If I come over here and put a different word, instantly it is sorted and unique. Wow, that is definitely the wildest formula I've ever done. It's so awesome to be part of our online Excel team. Thanks to Bill Sizes for that amazing formula. All right, we'll see you next trick.